Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, let's go.
Alright, Andre, you heard the girl. Go. Talk. Let's hear about Dragalia Lost.
You're so demanding, Derek. Jeez. So I had the chance to play the game for about an hour or so on both iPhone and iPad at a recent Nintendo event in San Francisco. And it gave me a better idea of how everything works in the game, because the recent Nintendo Direct did a pretty good job explaining the individual systems, but what I felt like we were kind of missing is how it all kind of ties together. And this gave me a better idea of how that works. Of course, I only played the earliest most missions in the game, so I can't speak too much to how it holds up over time. But I can speak to, just a better idea of how it all works, and I have to say, I came out pretty impressed by it, actually.
That's really great to hear. I mean, I do know that there's a bit of pedigree behind this game, as well, at least our previous work, these developers did gangbusters in Japan. So it's great to see that the same sort of polish is coming through in Dragalia Lost. And is that what you're noticing, is just a great level of, fluidity and how everything matches up?
I think that's kind of a good way of putting it. Like, there's a good fluidity to the actual controls and combat, and just a general, well done, polished presentation, I would say. Whether it's the, I like the chibi art style, the presentation of the menus is cute, especially with how your hero is just kind of bound along a path on the main menu. There's this bouncy music throughout the experience, at least in the portions I played, that just really, it was just really catchy and infectious and made me want to play more, which is maybe a bad thing for a gacha game.
Let's go. Come on.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, the controls worked well, the story seemed pretty well incorporated into it. Like, the game seemed to be about getting you in and getting you out. Just very briskly paced, getting you through the story. It really is focused around these bite-sized experiences, and we'll dive into all that later on. But yeah, there's just a general level of polish here in my experience that kind of elevated everything in the game.
Let's talk about the presentation, because is there a kind of hub that's everything's focused around? There's like a base that you come back to where you can buff up your units or whatnot, or how does the story work? How is it all structured, I guess, is what I'm asking.
So there is kind of a base in a way called the Halidom, and that is where you can go to upgrade your characters or your dragons, which we'll get into, because yeah, there are dragons here, which you probably know if you watch the Direct. But I don't think it's so much focused around that as it is, when it comes to the story, it's focused around a world map. So there's a world map that'll take you through chapter by chapter. For the most part, it seems to be pretty linear, at least the story, the Nintendo reps told me, is linear, but there are occasional branching paths, which I believe are more for side missions, they're more for other parts of the game you can explore, but otherwise, I think there is a critical path here with a linear story. And yeah, as it goes through level to level, each level consists of a few different story elements in which you talk to different characters, generally through a static image, or a relatively static image. I think it may be lightly animated, and there's a lot of text involved. But it's still well presented. But what's really cool about this is if you're not one for story, you can just skip right past it. There's a skip button in the corner, you can just give it a click, and when you do this, and this is the key part, it gives you an instant summary of what would have happened. So it gives you a quick rundown of everything you missed. That way you can just skip right ahead to the next action sequence while still having enough context to know what's going on. That
is freaking awesome. As you said, we've seen skip buttons time and time again with most games, but they never really give you hey, here's what you missed. Here's a nice little summary for you, so you can still have some context for what you're encountering. Why isn't that more common?
It should be. It worked really well here, especially given just the brisk nature of the game, because this game really is built around these bite-sized experiences. And so it's an action RPG. I don't know if I forget if I said that already. In which you play through these short levels, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, my experience. They might get longer later on, but they're really short, and it sounded like that's an intentional design choice. Because this is the game they expect you to be able to play, whenever you have a spare moment, like if you're on a bus or, wherever else. And yeah, so it's nice that you can skip through the story cutscenes, get right into the gameplay, and the gameplay itself is very brisk as well, as I mentioned. And as part of this, there's an auto battle option that you can turn on, where if you just want to lay back on the gameplay itself, you totally can. The catch is, the game's not particularly good at playing itself, so, for instance, in my case, the characters ran right past a treasure chest. Apparently they didn't care about it, they were just focused on getting through the level, which kind of makes sense, but it is, it probably is useful if you want to replay levels to level grind, perhaps, or if you just want to take a break and lay back for a little bit. But yeah, what's cool is that the game offers multiple ways to play the game. There's a lot of variety in the way you can play, it seems, with being able to choose different characters, different matchups, whether you play multiplayer or single player, and how much story you want to intake. So yeah, I mean, the game seemed to be very friendly just to a wide audience, I would say, almost.
Let's say I actually want to play the game rather than let it play itself. How does that control? How does that feel, actually doing the combat yourself?
It felt surprisingly good, because I'm one who's generally skeptical of touchscreen controls. I like having a control stick and buttons. However, they work pretty well in this case. So the way it works is, to move your character, just put your thumb or your finger anywhere on the screen, and just push your finger in the direction you want to move. An arrow will then appear around your character showing exactly where they'll be moving to. It's just basically like a virtual control stick wherever you touch, which worked out quite well. To attack, you just tap the screen, you just keep tapping it to keep attacking. If you hold down on the screen, you'll do a charge attack, which of course is stronger. There are a couple of touchscreen-based buttons as well, such as one for a skill button in which your character, depending on what character you have, they'll have a different attack. The one the main character has is a blazing circle, which is basically a fancy way of saying a Zelda spin attack. And that charges up over time, like the more you attack enemies, for instance. There's also, of course, the dragon button, which becomes active once it fills about halfway, once you fill the meter halfway, which you fill by beating enemies and collecting the crystals they drop. And once you turn into a dragon, it controls like, it controls like the rest of the game, except now you're bigger, you're faster, you're stronger, and it's just pretty fun, because it can just tear through these enemies, which means you generally want to save it for the boss fight, because that's where it's most useful, at least early on, because the early enemies, the early minions, aren't much of a problem by yourself. And also you can zoom in and out on the map to, move the camera closer or farther out just by pinching, like you would in Google Maps, for instance. Also, I forgot to mention, you can also dodge just by swiping in any direction. That also felt good, also responsive, and it ties well into the game, because what's cool is the enemies, when they attack, or for some of their attacks, it highlights where exactly the attack is going to land. So there might be a giant rectangle, for instance, showing where a projectile is going to fly through. You want to roll out of the way of that rectangle. So yeah, it has just a really good action feel to it. It kind of felt like, almost in a way, a simpler Secret of Mana, combined a little bit with the controls of one of the Zelda DS games. Except I would say it was even more responsive than that, so...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it seemed like you talking about all those systems and when you might want to use them and everything like that, there does seem to be a fair amount of strategy in the game. And granted, you are in the, literally the opening hour. Mm-hmm. But do you get a sense that, with your different party members and what your main character is able to do, do you get a sense that there will be even more strategies at play as you go further in the game? Yeah,
I definitely got that sense. I mean, I'm sure the difficulty will pick up later on, although I didn't experience that myself. But you can even tell, when you enter a mission, for instance, it gives you an idea of what kind of elemental enemies you'll be encountering, and you'll probably want to build your party around that, so you have an elemental type that can counter the enemies in the stage. Also, the game gives you a rating before you enter each level, or it kind of gives you a general, I forget what the game called it, but a general overall rating for your party, so you have some idea of what you're going in with. Beyond all that, during boss fights, for instance, you can definitely see where strategy will come in more into play there, especially in multiplayer, when you can work together with your teammates to better position yourself around the boss characters, which is going to be useful because these bosses have a feature called Overdrive, or once you pummel them too much, they enter Overdrive, where they become even more powerful, more dangerous, and that's when you really want to, kind of watch out for their attacks. So that's when you may want to surround them more, have someone on, at least in the back, for instance, attacking them while the enemy's distracted from the front. If you keep attacking the enemy while it's in overdrive, eventually it will break, and it will then be stunned for a few moments while you can just really lay into it. Yeah, I mean, there's options available, and hey, it's a strategy to get them into that break functionality, so that makes sense. You were talking about the multiplayer. Did you actually get a chance to try the multiplayer? I wish I did. Unfortunately, I didn't. It was single player only in my experience. But when you're playing single player, the game does let you hop between any of the characters you have in your current party, which is up to 4, just by tapping the character icon in the corner. So that's kind of neat. So you can switch up to different abilities, different dragons, depending on which dragons you assign to which character, which is something you do before you enter a stage. So make sure you equip your dragons before entering, because having those dragons really is useful. Yeah, I'd imagine so. And well, actually, speaking of that, you obviously make story progress by going through each of these missions. What kind of rewards do you get? Is it like equipment or something else to help buff up your characters? What can we expect as far as those kind of rewards for playing? I don't remember the exact rewards I got in-game. There's various rewards you get at the end, but I will mention, though, as part of that, there are this thing called endeavors, which are basically achievements, and completing them will, of course, unlock even more bonuses for you. And you'll see which ones you unlock at the end of each mission. And I think there's also a list you can access from the menu. So that's something you definitely want to keep in mind as you go through these missions, so you can try and earn extra rewards at the end. Just keep in mind that you have to go redeem the reward manually, as it's not automatic. And I believe, by the way, when you finish a mission, if you're playing multiplayer, those rewards are randomly distributed among the party. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Oh, that could be a little like, hey, we got this legendary sword. One of them.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
So who's getting that? But it's still cool that you can equip your allies and get them better and buff them all up. So I guess that ties into your home base. Like, what can you do at the home base?
Yeah, so once again, this is called the Halidome, and here the general idea is you can build structures. It almost reminded me a little bit of the Mushroom Kingdom of Super Mario Run, in which you can build things. The difference is, in this case, they actually do things, whether it's enhancing or, like if you build a mine, it'll give you gold, or you can build structures that'll give you different properties or enhance you in different ways. As I recall, I think if you build a flame altar, it'll give any flame characters you have in your party a bonus. So this is something that's definitely important to do, presumably, as you go through the game. Early on, it didn't seem to matter too much, but again, I'm sure that's going to come into play later on. While you're in the Halidome, there's also the Dragon Roost, which is where you can go to give your dragons different gifts to upgrade them, and you can buy more gifts with, you can buy treats for them using the gold you've accumulated. So that will definitely be important as you go through the game. And then also, as part of the Halidome, there are these different stories called Adventure Stories, Dragon Stories, and Castle Stories. And basically, what these do is they provide you with backstory for different characters in the game. So as you encounter these different characters, of which there are more than 60, you can unlock these backstories for them to kind of better explain their role in the game, why they're involved in the story, and it just gives you more details on the character or the dragon. Or other, backstory elements of the game.
Makes me happy when an RPG fleshes out the side characters, especially when there's a lot of them.
Right.
So you can just get a little sense of, hey, this is what this character is about. And I think that also helps push you to try to get all of the allies to begin with, so you can see all of their stories, see which one's your favorite, all that kind of stuff. At least that's from my perspective. So did you get the chance to summon these allies yourself, or did they already have them preset for you?
Yeah, so I actually did get a chance to do some summoning. So the way it works is when you go to the shop, there are, I believe, 3 different options. There's the daily deal, which changes dailies, I expect. There's a single summon, which I believe for 150 Wormite or Diamantium. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that is.
All right.
Diamantium.
So Diamantium, there we go. So to clarify, Wormite is the in-game currency. This is what you unlock by playing through the game, whereas Diamantium, if I said that right, hopefully, that is something you pay to unlock. So if you want more, or if you want to shortcut your way through the game, you're going to use your real-world money to buy this in-game currency. So it is kind of nice that they separate in that way, so there's a clear distinction, but at the same time, it kind of motivates you to maybe pick some of it up to, to kind of speed your way through the game. Anyways, so to get back to what I was getting at, there's a single summon, which is a completely random reward, whether it's a character, a dragon, or a weapon, or a worm print, which is different accessories you can equip on your character. Yeah, that's completely random, which means it can be a different quality, a different caliber. You have no idea what you're going to get. However, there's another option, which I think I misheard this. I wrote down tentpole, but I think it makes more sense that it was 10 pull, because I believe you're literally pulling 10 different of these. And what's nice about this option is not only do you get 10 different 10 different characters or dragons or whatever else, you're guaranteed a 4-star character. So you're basically guaranteed at least one really good option here. Whereas with the single polls, you could get crap for the entire thing. So.
I like that. That's very nice in a gacha game to have a little bit of forgiveness there,
right?
Where you're going to get at least something decent. So
even if it does cost you, some more in the short term. So that's the trade-off. But yeah, you do get that guarantee at least.
Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit better about the whole situation.
Also, kind of related to this is that there is a stamina system in place, which depletes the more levels you play, including if you replay missions. So that's something to keep in mind, because the game does limit, as gacha games tend to do, how much you can actually play. Now, I didn't reach a cap my short playtime. Apparently, it isn't too much of a factor early on, going by what the Nintendo rep told me. But eventually, depending on how much you play, you may reach a wall. At which point, either A, you have to wait until it replenishes enough where you can play more of the game, which replenishes in real time, or B, I believe there are options you can buy more stamina. But I don't know too much about that. So yeah, that's kind of how they limit you on, that's how they kind of motivate you to play, to pay more to play this game.
Yeah, it's a pretty common mobile game tactic. Like, I think it sounds very similar to the system in place for Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key.
Right.
So yeah, it's not totally uncommon. But well, what else stuck out to you about Dragalia Lost? Anything else?
Just the overall pace of the game. Like, I think I touched on it before, but this is a very briskly paced game. These are really bite-sized experiences, perfect for when you only have a few moments to play. Even if you want to play online, which, I didn't test that, but presumably, if it connects you real quick, this seems like just a great way to hop in a match, have fun for a few moments, and hop back out. And it just really seems like a fun, fast-paced RPG, built around these bite-sized experiences with some story sprinkled in there, like there's a decent amount of story that surrounds each of these missions in my experience. And again, what's great is if you don't care about the story, you can just skip right past it while still getting the gist of what happened. So it really does seem well designed in that sense, where it'll cater to those who just want gameplay or those who want more story, especially with the ability to just turn on the auto combat where the game can play itself. Also, I should mention too real quick, there are multiple ways in which you can upgrade yourself. We kind of touched on that a little bit, including the mana circle, I believe, in which you can use a mana you've accumulated to upgrade your character in various ways. And as part of that, if you don't care so much about running the numbers or the intricacies of what improves what, you can also auto-complete that as well. You can have the game fill it in all for you, have the game take care of it, which is probably more up my alley, because my eyes kind of gloss over looking at all these numbers and options. Like, I don't really care about this. I want to get back into the gameplay. I just want to go beat on some more monsters. So that seems like a perfect solution for me. So I do like they're offering all these ways of, again, kind of playing the game. It does seem to be a very accessible RPG, which is I'm sure very much intentional, because being a mobile game, they want to reach a broad demographic, I think, with this, and opening up all these options for you is the way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it seems like you left this whole demo pretty impressed.
I had fun with it. It seemed to be a fun game. Again, I can't speak to how well it'll hold up over time, and I'm sure that's something we'll explore with the game coming out super soon, being, I think, September 27th, so that's only a few days away. Yeah. I will say the early missions did seem a little bit, I don't want to say repetitive, because it wasn't repetitive yet, but each level did feel very similar, but Nintendo did skim me a little bit ahead of the game to a different level, and that started to feel a little bit different, where it introduced a few new elements. So I would say that's maybe my one concern right now, is how much can they introduce in this game to keep it interesting, because the early missions did all seem very similar. So that's kind of the main question, is how much gameplay is there really here to hold your interest? Oh, and before we wrap it up, there were just two more things I wanted to note, and one is the fact is that the game actually downloads the data on a per mission basis. So anytime you want to access a new stage, it instantly downloads the data right then, and it was pretty quick in my experience, like only a few seconds, because the data is pretty small. However, if you want, you can apparently do a batch download and download everything in advance, or a large amount of it in advance at least. That way you can download everything at once over Wi-Fi as opposed to taking a hit on your phone bill, for instance. Although, regardless, you are going to need a persistent internet connection to play this game. Even if you're playing only single player, you have to have internet connection at all times.
Alright, well I think that covers it for our Dragalia Lost preview. So thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And of course, make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Dragalia Lost and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.